Welcome to Revenge with Nora. Every year, for 9 straight years, my mother called me on my birthday. Not to sing, not to celebrate. To remind me that I had embarrassed this family by choosing a career in nursing instead of law. 9 years, same call. Same script. Same silence after I hung up. My name is Serena Calloway. I'm 32. And if you think you know where this story goes, stay with me. Because the ending surprised even me. Growing up in a house in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I learned very early that love in my family was transactional. My older sister, Diane, went to law school. My younger brother, Patrick, was pre-med. And me? I wanted to take care of people the way no one in that house ever took care of me. I enrolled in a nursing program at 18 and watched my mother's face fall like I'd announced I was dropping out of life entirely. She never recovered from that disappointment. Neither did my father. The family had a name for what I did at gatherings. They called it Serena's phase, as in, we're not sure if Serena's phase is permanent yet. As in, once Serena gets this out of her system, she'll do something real. I heard that phrase so many times it stopped cutting. Then it started cutting again in a different place. By my mid-20s, I had stopped being invited to things. Not directly, not with a conversation. It was always discovered after the fact. My sister's engagement party? I saw the photos on Facebook 3 days later. My cousin Marcus's graduation dinner? Oh, we thought you'd be working. My Aunt Ruth's 70th birthday? It was just close family this time. I was always just outside the circle of just. I told myself it was their loss. I told myself I didn't need their validation. I told myself a lot of things alone in my apartment with the TV on too loud so the quiet wouldn't get in. Then I met Daniel. He came into my life the way good things usually do, quietly and without announcement. We met at a hospital fundraiser. He was volunteering, setting up chairs, wearing a flannel shirt like he had no idea he was the most genuine person in the room. He asked me what I did. When I said I was an ICU nurse, he didn't nod politely. He leaned forward. He asked real questions. He wanted to know what the hardest part was, what kept me going, what I was proud of. I talked for 40 minutes and didn't apologize once. We dated for 2 years. He met my family once. At a Christmas dinner, I still can't explain why I attended. My mother spent the evening asking him pointed questions about his 5-year plan. My father shook his hand once and then talked to my brother for the rest of the night. Diane smiled at Daniel with that particular smile she reserved for things she considered temporary. On the drive home, Daniel held my hand across the center console and said, "I understand now why you are the way you are." I asked what he meant. He said, "Strong. Like you built yourself from scratch because you had to." I didn't say anything. I just looked out the window and let myself believe him. When Daniel proposed, he did it on an ordinary Tuesday evening. We were making dinner. He turned down the burner, reached into his jacket pocket, and said he'd been carrying the ring for 3 weeks because he didn't want to make a big production out of something that felt this simple. He said, "You're the person I want to be next to for every unremarkable Tuesday for the rest of my life." I said yes with a wooden spoon still in my hand. We planned a small wedding. 40 people. A venue outside Asheville, North Carolina, where the mountains made everything feel honest. We chose people who had actually shown up for us, people who had sat with us through hard things, people who knew our last names without needing to be reminded why they cared. I did not send an invitation to my mother. Not to my father. Not to Diane. Not to Patrick. Not to cousin Marcus or Aunt Ruth, or any of the people who had spent the better part of a decade treating me like a rumor they were waiting to stop believing in. I didn't make an announcement. I didn't write a letter. I didn't explain myself to anyone. I simply planned the most beautiful day of my life and left them out of it the same way they had left me out of everything for years. The wedding was on a Saturday in October. The leaves were doing what they do in the mountains in October, turning every shade of gold and rust like the whole world was agreeing with my decision. I found out later that my mother learned about the wedding through a mutual friend who had seen a photo my maid of honor, Cassidy, posted online. The photo wasn't even of the wedding itself. It was of us getting ready, laughing in a hotel room, curlers in Cassidy's hair, my veil draped over a chair. Someone who knew my mother saw it and mentioned it. I want to be clear about that because I know people wonder. I did not announce the wedding to hurt them. I announced nothing. I simply got married. They found out because the world is small and happiness, it turns out, is hard to hide. What happened next happened fast. My phone started ringing Saturday evening, while Daniel and I were still at the reception. I felt it buzzing in my clutch and ignored it. By the time we got back to the hotel, I had 11 missed calls. 4 from my mother, 2 from my father, 3 from Diane, 1 from Patrick. 1 from a number I didn't recognize that turned out to be my Aunt Ruth, calling from her neighbor's phone because I had blocked hers 2 years earlier after she told me I was too sensitive for my own good, following an incident I'll get to in a moment. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed in my wedding dress with my husband beside me, and I listened to the voicemails on speaker so neither of us would have to carry it alone. My mother's voice was trembling in that specific way it trembles when she wants to sound wounded but can't quite hide the anger underneath. Serena, I don't even know what to say. Your father is devastated. You got married without us. What is wrong with you? Call me back. My father's was shorter. This is a disgrace. You need to fix this. Diane's lasted 4 minutes. She talked about family and unity and how this reflected on all of them and how she had defended me to people over the years, which I knew was not true, and how I had no idea what I was throwing away. Her voice rose toward the end. She used the word selfish 11 times. I counted because counting felt better than feeling. Patrick just said, "Come on, Serena, really?" Daniel took my phone gently and set it face down on the nightstand. Then he said, "Tonight is still ours if you want it to be." I looked at him in his jacket with the boutonniere starting to droop and I thought, this is what I chose. This is what I get to keep. And I let the night be ours. But here's the thing about people who are used to having power over you. When you stop letting them have it, they don't accept that quietly, they escalate. By Sunday morning, my mother had done something I genuinely did not see coming, which maybe says something about how much I had given her the benefit of the doubt even after everything. She posted on Facebook. Not a subtle post, not a vague one. A full, name-forward, photo-attached post. She uploaded a photo of me from when I was about 8 years old, sitting on the porch of the Baton Rouge house in pigtails, squinting into the sun. The caption read, "A mother's love is unconditional. Even when your child forgets where she came from and who sacrificed everything to give her a life. Praying for healing in our family. God sees what we cannot say publicly." She tagged herself in Baton Rouge. She tagged my Aunt Ruth. She did not tag me, which meant I only found out because Cassidy screenshot it and sent it to me with a single message. Say the word. The comments were immediate and enthusiastic. People I had not seen or spoken to in over a decade were offering their condolences to my mother. "You are such a strong woman. Some children just don't appreciate what they have. She'll come around when she grows up." My cousin Marcus wrote, "This family has always been there for you no matter what. So sorry, Aunt Linda." Marcus, who had not texted me once in 4 years. Marcus, who I was not invited to celebrate when he graduated. I sat with that for about an hour. Daniel made coffee. I watched the mountain fog from the window and I made a decision. I was not going to be her story. I thought about the year I was 24, when I had a genuinely bad stretch at work, 3 patients in 1 month who didn't make it despite everything, and I called my mother because I didn't know where else to turn. She listened for about 90 seconds and then said, "Well, this is why I worried about this career for you. You're too emotional. Diane doesn't have these problems." I didn't call her again for 7 months. When I finally did, she didn't mention the gap. Neither did I. I just quietly added it to the folder I kept in the back of my mind, the one labeled things that actually happened, for the day I might need them. That folder was about to matter. I called Cassidy. I said, "I need everything she's ever sent me in writing. I need the text from 2019 when she told me I should quit nursing and stop embarrassing the family name. I need the voicemail from 2021 where she told Daniel's mother and forgot I was on a three-way call that she didn't think our relationship was serious enough for her to invest in. I needed the email she sent me in 2022 when I was up for a charge nurse position, and she wrote, "Don't get your hopes up. You've never been good under pressure." I had saved all of it. Not out of bitterness. Out of the instinct you develop when you grow up in a house where your reality is constantly rewritten for you. You start keeping records just so you can trust your own memory. Cassidy said, "I've been waiting for this moment for 6 years. Let's go." Here is what I knew that my mother did not. I had been connected, through work, to a woman named Dr. Patricia Owens. She ran a support network for healthcare workers dealing with family estrangement and had a platform with a real audience, tens of thousands of people who followed her for honest conversations about toxic family dynamics, setting boundaries, and what it actually costs you to keep performing love for people who treat you like a problem to be managed. Dr. Owens had reached out to me 2 years earlier after a mutual colleague mentioned my situation. We had coffee once. She said, "If you ever want to tell your story, I think it would help people." I had said I wasn't ready. I told her I'd let her know. I texted her Sunday afternoon. I said, "I think I'm ready." She called within the hour. I told her everything. The years of exclusion, the birthday calls designed to shame me, the Facebook post, the voicemails. She asked me to send documentation of anything I was comfortable sharing. I sent her the texts. I sent her the email. I sent her a screenshot of the Facebook post. I wrote out a clear, calm, factual timeline of what had happened, starting from the day I enrolled in nursing school at 18 and going straight through to my wedding day. I told her I didn't want to sound bitter. I didn't want it to be a takedown. I wanted it to be true. She said, "Truth is enough." It usually is. She published it Monday morning. Not as an accusation. As a case study in what chronic family invalidation actually looks like over time, with my full name and my permission. She framed it around a question she said her audience asked constantly. What do you do when your family refuses to acknowledge that you exist until you do something they can use against you? The response was significant. By Monday afternoon, the post had been shared several thousand times. People who had been through similar things were writing out their own versions in the comments, decades-long patterns, the same language, the same mechanisms. Healthcare workers especially responded, nurses and paramedics and social workers who knew exactly what it costs to care for strangers professionally while being made to feel worthless at home. My mother's Facebook post was still up, but the context around it had shifted entirely. Several people who had commented their condolences on Saturday had since seen Dr. Owens's post and quietly deleted their comments. My Aunt Ruth sent me a text that said, "I had no idea it was this bad. I owe you an apology." I read it twice. I didn't respond yet. I needed to think about what I actually wanted from that relationship before I opened that door. Then my mother called again. I picked up. I don't entirely know why. Maybe because I wanted to hear what she would say now, with her version of events already publicly complicated. Her voice was different this time, less trembling, more controlled. Cold in the way things get cold when they've stopped pretending. She said, "You made us look like monsters." I said, "I told the truth." She said, "Your truth." I said, "There's only one kind." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You will regret this, Serena. Family is all you have in the end. When Daniel leaves, when your friends move on, when you're alone, don't call us." I said, "Okay." Just that. Okay. Because I realized in that moment that I had spent 32 years being afraid of exactly what she had just said, being alone, being without them. And sitting in a hotel room in the mountains with my husband reading on the other side of the bed, having built a life full of people who had chosen me back, the threat had finally lost all of its electricity. It was just words. She was just a person I used to be afraid of. I said, "I hope you find some peace, Mom. I genuinely do." And then I ended the call. I contacted a lawyer that week. Not because I was planning to pursue anything aggressively, but because Dr. Owens's post had prompted my mother to leave 3 increasingly hostile comments on the public thread under a fake account she created, which Cassidy identified almost immediately by the writing style, the cadence, the specific phrases she always used. We documented everything. My lawyer sent a formal letter advising that any further contact intended to harass, defame, or intimidate would be taken seriously and that the existing documentation was sufficient to support a claim if it came to that. The fake account disappeared within an hour of the letter being delivered. My father texted once after that. He said, "This got out of hand. I hope you're happy." I thought about responding for a long time. I thought about all the dinners where he sat at the head of the table and said nothing while my mother picked me apart. All the times his silence had felt like permission. I typed back one sentence, "I actually am." Then I put my phone in a drawer and went and sat with Daniel on the couch and watched something completely forgettable on television and felt, for the first time in years, completely at ease. Weeks passed. The noise settled. My mother did not post again. Diane sent a long email that I read once and didn't reply to. It was full of the kind of language that sounds like an apology if you're not paying close attention, lots of "I'm sorry you felt," and "I didn't realize how you perceived things," which is not the same as taking responsibility and never has been. I saved the email in the folder. I'm not sure why. Some instincts take time to unlearn. Patrick called once. He didn't leave a voicemail. I didn't call back. What surprised me most was how little grief I felt. I had expected it to hit me like a wave, the finality of it, the door closing. But it didn't feel like a door closing. It felt like putting down something I had been carrying for so long I'd forgotten it wasn't supposed to be mine. My shoulders literally felt different. Daniel noticed it. He said one morning, "You seem lighter." I said I was. I went back to work. My patients didn't know any of this. They just knew I showed up. A woman named Gloria, 81, who had been in my unit for 2 weeks following a procedure, held my hand one afternoon and said, "You have kind eyes. Your family must be very proud of you." I squeezed her hand and said, "The ones that matter are." And I meant it. One evening, a few months after the wedding, I found myself going through a box I hadn't opened in years, full of things from my childhood bedroom that I had taken when I moved out at 22. There were report cards, birthday cards, a photo from a family trip to the Gulf Coast when I was 12. In the photo, I am laughing at something off camera. My mother is beside me. She is looking at Diane. I held the photo for a long time. Not with sadness, exactly. More with something that felt like clarity. Like finally being able to see a thing as it actually was, not as you always hoped it might have been. I put the photo back in the box. I taped it shut. I labeled it with a marker. History. Not mine to carry anymore. Daniel found me in the hallway with the box and a piece of tape. He didn't ask. He just picked up the other end of the box and helped me move it to the top shelf of the closet where the things you don't need anymore but aren't ready to let go of live. I've learned some things this year that I wish I had understood a long time ago. That keeping records is not paranoia, it's self-respect. That forgiveness, if you find your way to it, does not require giving someone renewed access to your life. That the people who disappear when you need them and reappear when you inconvenience them are telling you something precise and important about who they are. That quiet is not the same as peace, but peace is quiet, and learning the difference between the two might be the most important thing you ever do. I don't have a dramatic ending to offer you. There was no climactic confrontation. No tearful reconciliation. No moment where everyone stood in a parking lot and finally said the true things. Life doesn't usually give you that. What it gave me instead was an ordinary Wednesday morning with good coffee and my husband's terrible taste in breakfast radio and 40 people who had sat in mountain chairs in October and watched me choose myself. That's what I kept. That's what I built. Not from what my family gave me. From what I refused to keep letting them take. And if you are someone who has been made to feel like a background character in your own family's story, I want you to know something. You are allowed to write a different one. You are allowed to choose who sits in the chairs. You are allowed to get married on a mountain in October and feel nothing but joy. And let the people who spent years making you small find out about it through a photo of you laughing in a hotel room with curlers in your best friend's hair. You are allowed to be that happy. Without explanation. Without apology. Without waiting for their permission to begin.